A United States Navy destroyer is one of the most defended surface platforms on the planet. Aegis Combat System. SPY-1D radar capable of tracking over 100 targets simultaneously. SM-2 surface-to-air missiles. Harpoon anti-ship missiles. A 5-inch naval gun that can put a round on target at 13 nautical miles. Phalanx CIWS for point defense. Multiple .5 zero-caliber mounts. Torpedo tubes. Electronic warfare suites. Decoys. The Arleigh Burke-class destroyer was built to fight a war in open ocean against peer adversaries. It was built to survive. So when a fleet of Iranian fast boats managed to close within striking distance of one, without a single warning being issued, the question everyone at 5th Fleet headquarters asked wasn't how the Iranians attacked. It was how they got that close in the first place. Welcome to Warfare Signal, where we break down the most critical military operations shaping global power. The ship in question was an Arleigh Burke-class flight, 2A guided missile destroyer, operating in the northern Persian Gulf. Displacement: 9,700 tons. Crew of 329. One of the most capable warships afloat. The destroyer was conducting a freedom of navigation patrol, a deliberate, scheduled transit designed to assert the right of passage through international waters. These patrols are planned weeks in advance. Routes are vetted by CENTCOM. Intelligence briefings precede every transit. Every known threat along the corridor is cataloged, classified, and assigned a response protocol. On this morning, the destroyer was transiting the Central Gulf approximately 35 nautical miles southeast of Iran's Karg Island, the country's largest oil export terminal and one of the most strategically significant points in the entire Middle East. The intelligence picture was clear. IRGCN activity had been elevated for 72 hours. Multiple fast boat sorties observed from Bushehr and Bandar Abbas. Iranian naval radar emissions detected at higher than normal rates. All indicators pointed to increased Iranian posturing, likely in response to the US patrol itself. What intelligence didn't flag was what was happening closer to the ship. At 05:42 hours local time, the destroyer's AN/S PS-67 surface search radar was operating in standard surveillance mode. The radar is designed to detect small surface contacts at ranges exceeding 20 nautical miles. Under optimal conditions, it can track a contact the size of a jet ski at considerable distance. But the Persian Gulf at dawn is not optimal conditions. The surface layer, the thin boundary between air and water, creates what radar operators call ducting. Atmospheric conditions bend radar signals, creating blind spots and false returns. In the northern Gulf, where humidity is extreme and temperature differentials between water and air are sharp, ducting can reduce effective detection ranges for small, low-profile targets by up to 40%. The IRGCN knows this. They've studied it for decades. At 05:48, the first genuine alarm came not from radar, but from the ship's electronic surveillance measures, the AN/SLQ-32 system. It detected a brief pulse of Iranian military radar, a Kelvin-Hughes-type navigation system commonly used on IRGCN patrol boats. The bearing, northeast. Range, indeterminate. The electronic warfare technician flagged it, but a single pulse with no associated radar track didn't meet the threshold for alert escalation. It was logged. It was not actioned. This was the first mistake. At 05:53, 5 minutes later, the portside bridge lookout reported visual contact. Multiple small craft, bearing 035. Estimated range, roughly 1,200 meters, 1,200 meters, less than 3/4 of a mile. In naval terms, this is dangerously close for unidentified contacts near a warship. The fact that they were visually detected before radar classified them meant the system had failed at its most basic function: early warning. The bridge erupted. General quarters was sounded at 05:54. 329 sailors sprinted to battle stations. Watertight doors sealed. weapons systems armed. The Combat Information Center went from routine watch to full combat readiness in under 90 seconds. But those 90 seconds cost position. By the time the Mark 38 chain gun was manned and the 5-inch gun was loaded, the contacts had closed to 800 meters. Visual identification now confirmed, at least 8 small craft. Fast attack configuration. IRGCN, colors visible on the lead boats. 8 boats, 800 meters, closing at approximately 35 knots. The captain, a career surface warfare officer with 22 years of service, was on the bridge within 40 seconds of general quarters. He assessed the situation in under 10 seconds. Later, in the after-action review, he described his thought process. I had 8 unidentified turned hostile contacts inside my defensive perimeter. My close-in weapons were still coming online. I had no helicopter airborne, and I had roughly 60 seconds before the first boats would be within machine gun range. He ordered immediate radio warnings. 2 transmissions in rapid succession on Channel 16. Standard hostile approach language. 1 boat responded. In Farsi. No translation was immediately available. The response lasted approximately 4 seconds before the channel went silent. At 0556, the lead Iranian boat altered course, not away, but sharply toward the destroyer's stern. A second boat mirrored the movement toward the bow. Classic bracket maneuver. They were trying to set up simultaneous approach from opposite ends of the ship. The captain gave the order, warning shots. The forward .50 caliber mount fired a controlled burst across the bow of the lead boat. Tracer rounds arcing through the morning air. Unmistakable intent. The response was a volley of machine gun fire. Multiple Iranian boats opened up simultaneously. KPV 14.5mm rounds. DSHK 12.7mm rounds. Concentrated fire directed at the destroyer's superstructure. Now, an Arleigh Burke-class destroyer is built with steel construction, rated to withstand significant punishment. Machine gun rounds from fast boats are not going to sink it, but they can, and did, cause real damage. Rounds struck the aft stack, multiple impacts along the portside bridge wing. 1 burst hit the radar mast, damaging a satellite communications antenna. Another impacted near the aft .50 caliber mount, sending shrapnel across the fantail. 2 sailors were wounded in the first 30 seconds. Shrapnel injuries, non-critical, but real. The captain's response was immediate and overwhelming. At 0557, the Mk-38 Mod 2 chain gun engaged the nearest boat, the one approaching the stern. 25mm high explosive rounds shredded the hull at 700 meters. The boat broke apart, spilling fuel and debris across the surface. The 5-inch gun, the Mark 45 Model 4, trained to port and fired a single round at a cluster of 3 boats maneuvering together at 900 meters. A 5-inch naval shell weighs 70 pounds. Against fiberglass-hulled fast boats, the effect is not proportional. It's annihilation. The round detonated in the center of the formation. 1 boat was destroyed instantly. The other 2 were heavily damaged, disabled, drifting, on fire. In a single 5-inch round, 3 boats were effectively eliminated from the fight. The remaining 4 boats scattered. 2 broke northwest. 2 broke southeast. Their cohesion was gone. The bracket maneuver had collapsed, but the destroyer wasn't finished. At 0558, the Phalanx CIWS, the ship's last-ditch point defense system, normally reserved for incoming missiles, was authorized to engage surface targets. The 20mm Vulcan cannon, firing 4,500 rounds per minute, tracked and engaged a boat attempting to make a high-speed run along the starboard side. The volume of fire was visible from every point on the ship, a solid stream of tracers connecting the destroyer to its target. The boat didn't explode. It disintegrated. Witnesses described it as evaporating. At 600, 4 minutes after the first Iranian shots, the ship's SH-60B Seahawk helicopter launched from the aft flight deck. It had been on standby since general quarters, but rotor spin-up, pre-flight checks, and deck clearance consumed critical minutes. The Seahawk immediately acquired the remaining targets. 2 boats fleeing northwest and 1 disabled boat drifting southeast. It did not fire. The fleeing boats were increasing distance. The disabled boat posed no threat. At 0602, a second asset arrived, an MH-60R Seahawk from a nearby cruiser that had been monitoring the engagement via Link 16 data sharing. This helicopter was armed with Hellfire missiles and carried advanced dipping sonar, unnecessary for surface targets, but its FLIR targeting pod immediately began feeding precision coordinates to the destroyer's CIC. By 0604, the engagement was effectively over. The 2 fleeing boats had crossed back into Iranian territorial waters. The destroyer did not pursue. The final count: 5 Iranian fast attack boats destroyed or disabled. 3 boats escaped to Iranian waters. The destroyer sustained 47 confirmed small arms impacts, damage to 1 satellite antenna, 1 radar component, and superficial damage to the port side superstructure. 4 sailors were injured, 2 from direct shrapnel, 1 from a secondary fragment, 1 from blunt force during general quarters movement. All 4 were treated aboard ship. None required evacuation. The entire engagement, from first shot to ceasefire, lasted 8 minutes. But the aftermath lasted months. The immediate question that consumed 5th Fleet and CENTCOM was not about the firepower used. It was about the detection failure. How did 8 IR-GCN fast boats close to 1,200 meters visual range before being classified as hostile? The investigation identified 3 contributing factors. First, atmospheric ducting. The morning conditions in the northern Gulf created a radar propagation environment that significantly reduced the SPS-67's effective detection range against low-profile, high-speed craft. The boats, running at slow speed during their approach phase, presented radar cross-sections, barely distinguishable from sea clutter. Second, the IRGCN's approach tactics. Declassified analysis revealed that the boats had staged from a position behind a cluster of oil service platforms approximately 8 nautical miles northeast of the destroyer's track. The platforms, legitimate commercial infrastructure, masked the boats' radar returns during the initial approach phase. When they broke from the platform cluster, they were already inside the radar's reduced detection envelope. Third, and most troubling, human factor. The single electronic intelligence pulse detected at 0548 was assessed as inconclusive. The technician followed established protocol in logging it without escalation. But in retrospect, that pulse was the IRGCN boat's commander, taking 1 radar sweep to confirm the destroyer's position before committing to the approach. It was the warning, and it was missed. The Pentagon's public response was measured. The incident was described as unsafe and unprofessional. Iranian behavior met with appropriate defensive measures. Footage was not released. Iran's response was louder. State media broadcast claims of an unprovoked American attack on Iranian naval patrol forces. 3 days later, the IRGCN held a military parade in Bushehr featuring mock-ups of destroyed American ships. But the intelligence community tracked the real response. Leaked assessments from Allied services indicated that the IRGCN commanding general personally reviewed the operational plan that led to the engagement. 2 boat commanders were removed from service. Internal IRGCN communications, intercepted by signals intelligence assets, revealed a heated debate about whether swarm tactics remained viable against destroyer-class targets. The conclusion, according to sources familiar with the intercepts, the IRGCN acknowledged that engaging an Arleigh Burke-class destroyer with machine guns was, in their own assessment, like throwing stones at an armored vehicle. But the destroyer's captain didn't celebrate. In his after-action report, portions of which were summarized in a briefing to the Senate Armed Services Committee, he wrote one line that defined the incident's true significance. "We won in 8 minutes. But they had 12 minutes of approach we didn't see. If those boats had carried anti-ship missiles instead of machine guns, this report would read very differently." That sentence reshaped detection protocols across the entire Fifth Fleet. Within 60 days, all major surface combatants operating in the Gulf were assigned dedicated small craft detection UAVs radar watch procedures were revised. The single pulse electronic intelligence threshold was eliminated. Any IRGCN associated radar emission now triggers immediate alert escalation. The destroyer was repaired at the Bahrain dry dock in under 2 weeks. The crew received combat action ribbons. The 4 wounded sailors recovered fully. And the Persian Gulf surface went quiet again. But quiet, as every naval intelligence officer knows, is not the same as safe. The IRGCN stopped sending machine gun boats. What they started developing, standoff missile-armed fast attack craft, was something the Navy's detection gap couldn't afford to miss twice. The 8-minute battle proved the destroyer could fight. The 12-minute approach proved the Gulf could still surprise. And in a waterway where 21 million barrels of oil transit every day, surprises are measured in global consequences. Stay vigilant. Stay informed. I'll see you in the next one.